Hey everyone, I'm Patrick Jones, and welcome to episode 78 of That Gives Me Anxiety. Oof, if you're watching the video, I'm sorry. Pimple.com on my forehead here. Do you think it's just only a teenage problem? Nope. Don't worry, kids. You'll be 36 and still having pimples. A lot of things get better. Some don't. Happy to announce, or I'm happy to say that Jamie and my wedding's plans is coming together, which is really nice. And also, once you open a door, close it. This I've already lost the metaphor. It's already in the breeze. But there's always new problems, right? With such a big event, yeah, a lot of people. So every time I think I'm like free from stressors, there's always something else that pulls me back in. The old like Godfather quote. And also, I just have to say it. I don't feel that well right now. Just feel sick. So sick and with pimples. What a combo. But enough about me. We've got a great episode lined up here. We, as if there's anyone else here. But that's not true. I have Charles Liu, astrophysicist from the American Museum of Natural History and City University of New York, Staten Island, and has the podcast The Luniverse. Back on to talk about black holes. This is part two of the two-part series. Last week's episode was sort of focused on how we figured out that black holes were a thing. Not necessarily just a thing, but actually exist, right? We learned that they were theoretical, made sense on paper, just like the New York Jets make sense on paper to win a Super Bowl. That's indisputable, all right? I don't want to hear it. But yeah, and then this episode we get more in depth about black holes and dispel some myths, and just it's awesome. I mean, Charles is the best. So enthusiastic and knowledgeable, and has a great ability to explain complex topics to ordinary people who want to learn but also struggle with learning. But before we jump back in with Charles, I just want to remind you, if you're liking the show, to please remember to rate and review it. 5 stars, little way to go, Pat. Keep it going, buddy. The pimple doesn't look that bad. Things like that, right? Those are things that you could write as a review. You can check the show out on Facebook, Instagram. I don't know, I just did this really dramatic hand motion. You can check the show out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. YouTube is where the hand motions and pimples and beer shirts I bought 7 years ago are. Also want to remind you of my partnership with Pure Spectrum CBD, and the promo code AnxietyPod gets you 15% off, from gummies to solves to we finally used like the bath powder, the calming, like I guess it's bath powder. I don't know what it is. It just says calm on the bag. Sprinkled some of that in. Woo! It smells fantastic. I love lavender. And if you're liking the show and you also want to place a tip, little donation, you can do that through the Buy Me a Coffee link, which is in the description. Well, enough of my face. Let's kick it over to Charles Liu and start having some fun talking about black holes. I guess I don't understand the natural progression of a star, right? A star is what it is, and then it begins to expand outward and then condenses into this black hole.
Ah,
Why?
those are terrific questions. This was extremely challenging, and to this day, most of the details are still quite uncertain. But
Okay.
the basic idea goes something like this. The average system out in the universe,
Mm-hmm.
be it a planet or a star or a cluster of stars or whatever, is undergoing a continuous push-pull
Okay.
between gravity trying to condense things toward the center of mass
Mm-hmm.
and some other kind of pressure going outward. The
Mm-hmm.
pressure could be produced by heat, it could be produced by other kinds of processes, but you're always trying to establish an equilibrium.
Right.
Okay. So in stars, the equilibrium is produced when there's a lot of heat on the inside that
Mm-hmm.
comes outward and pushes against all the layers of gas that otherwise would just fall down into a single point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you have enough heat generated from the center of your star, if you have enough energy pushing outward to counteract the gravitational pull of this blob of material pulling itself toward the center of mass, then you have a star. You have a stable thing in equilibrium, and it sits around. It looks kind of round. You can see it in the sky. There's little variations here and there. It's like a really hot, right? Because the temperature's got to be continuously really hot inside in order to keep that balance going. But over time, the balance is disrupted because the nuclear fusion inside stars is very limited. It cannot go on forever. Gravity basically persists indefinitely. No matter what kind of matter you have, whether it's a gas or a solid or a liquid or, whatever, gravity will always pull objects with mass towards its center. But the nuclear fusion processes are dependent on a lot of other things. What's the material at the center of the star, right? What's the temperature at the center of the star? What's the pressure at the center of the star? All these things can affect the amount of energy coming from the center of the star. So here's where things get exciting, right?
Yeah.
You have a star, like the sun, okay? It can stay in that nice balance between pushing and pulling for billions of years. But then eventually, right, the nuclear fusion runs out. And so the outer layers of the star will collapse in toward the center of the star and eventually wind up with a really dense nugget of material. Okay. And that nugget of material just sort of sits there. And that's it. It will no longer shine with nuclear fusion, but it's got a lot of internal heat. So it just sort of slowly glows and then darkens over billions of years. Okay. That's something that would happen to our sun. But if you have a different kind of sun, something that, say, instead of starting out with how much mass our sun has, but starts out with, say, 10 or 20 times more than that, right? So this thing, instead of weighing, a third of a million Earths, let's say it weighed 10 million Earths or something like that. All right. Then when the outer layers of the star collapse, that nugget in the center is not strong enough to support the weight. Imagine that nugget to be something like a ping pong ball, right? On a cosmic level. If you squish the ping pong ball hard enough, it will collapse. Right? So there are different levels of collapse. You can collapse that ping pong ball until all of it becomes this little shard of material, right? And becomes an even denser sort of super compact ping pong ball, right? Or you can imagine it collapsing so vigorously and so powerfully that it turns into a black hole. Yeah, that the Schwarzschild radius is surpassed. And so all that material falls inside a radius smaller than the Schwarzschild radius, and you have a black hole. So that's what happens. It's that last part of the life cycle of stars. If you have enough material that you can squish that stellar core into something smaller than the Schwarzschild radius, then you have your black hole. That's what it is.
Charles, my appreciation of gravity has grown by leaps and bounds here. It just seems like it may be, or the most powerful, I don't know, force out there, right? That space-time itself condenses because gravity just wants to pull everything together.
Gravity is the unsung power that drives almost all of the universe. So if you and I, we are frustrated by gravity holding us down, we shouldn't be so stressed out about it, because you know what? It holds everything down. And so it's really okay if that happens on small scales, like say on our human level scales. Other forces can be more powerful. So electricity, for example, right, electrical force is carried by positive and negative charges, electrons and protons. And they can be extremely powerful in small amounts, right? The amount of electromagnetic force in, say, a pound of electrons or something, right, is trillions upon trillions of times more powerful than the gravitational pull that those electrons would have. But you can't get a pound of electrons sitting by themselves. You always have protons next to them, right? You can get a few electrons here and there, and they flow back and forth, right? Even those few electrons is enough. Fraction of an ounce of electrons can light up your home, right?
Oh,
Can
wow.
heat
Yeah.
skyscrapers, can give us internet,
Yeah.
things like that, right? So that's really, really good. But you just can't get that many isolated. Sooner or later, it evens out, it balances out. So you wind up net with not a whole lot of electrical power in the universe. But
Mm,
nothing counteracts gravity like that. On a
yeah.
scale like once you get to a planet scale or you get to a stellar scale, all right, gravity just wins. It just does. And
Man.
the black hole is its ultimate victory, really.
Yeah. That's such a nice, like if black holes needed branding, that's a good gravity's greatest victory.
But remember, black holes don't suck.
Yeah.
They don't suck. And I like saying that because it's true, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people think that black holes are like some giant vacuum cleaner, right?
Hmm.
And they drive you in, and you see the science fiction stuff like, oh no, we're caught by the black hole and it's pulling us, right? Which the reality is that a black hole's gravity is no more or less than the gravity of another object that has the same mass but a different size. So
Mm.
if I were, say, 1,000,000 miles away from the Earth,
Okay.
and then the Earth became a black hole,
Hmm.
so it's the size of a gumball now, right? Remember?
Yeah.
If I'm 1,000,000 miles away, I actually don't care.
Really?
I would not be attracted toward that gumball any more than I would have been attracted toward the Earth in the first place.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So really, you can think of a black hole as like maybe a hole in a sidewalk or something. Let's say there's construction workers or utility workers and they left the manhole cover off, right?
Hmm.
If you just walk around it, if you stay out of its sphere of falling, you
Hmm.
know, then it's harmless.
Mm.
Now, if you step over it and go down it, then you're in a world of hurt, right? No
Yeah.
question. But as long as you just don't get into its sphere of influence, it's as if it were anything else out in the universe. It's not exotic until you get close. And that's where the power is, right? Because if the Earth were squished to the size of a gumball, that means you can fall further than the surface of the Earth now, right? You could
Hmm.
go all the way down to the core of the Earth. And as you get closer, once you're 50 miles or 1 mile or a few hundred feet away from that event horizon, the boundary of the Schwarzschild radius, right? That's where weird things start to happen to you because
Ooh.
that's the thing that you want to avoid. So don't fall into a black hole and you'll be fine. But they don't suck.
You hear that, kids? Yeah. Don't fall into black holes.
It's a one-way trip, unfortunately.
Yeah. Can we talk? I know you've got a lot on your plate. You've got work, you've got friends, you've got family, pets, you've got the people that you make small talk with at the coffee shop or gym. You've got that bird that you see when you wake up every morning outside your window that you've projected things onto. Look at that bird. Doesn't even love its family, it's always by itself. You do that. Everyone does that. Point is, you've got a lot on your plate. Well, that's why there's Instacart, to take a little bit off your plate. Using Instacart, you search for all your favorite foods and things that you need from the grocery store, all online, all while you're looking at that bird, wondering why it hasn't called its mom. And they deliver it to you. They go to the store and do the shopping for you. And they can deliver it in as fast as an hour. And you can sign up by clicking the link in the description, wherever you're listening or watching. And that's a great way of supporting the show. So it's a great way of supporting this show. It's a great way to make your life a little bit easier because we all know that you have so much going on, like wondering whether that bird judges you back. Well, I definitely want to get into that. But one other question I had before we get there is I've heard, and this is so funny to me that I'm like, I hear these things and then I get to ask an expert. But I've heard that there have been cases where black holes have collided and condensed. I remember there was a ripple in space-time itself that was detected here on Earth. Can
Heck
you tell
yeah.
me a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. This goes back to your original question about Albert Einstein and the concept of black holes, right?
Uh-huh.
If our universe is constructed with a four-dimensional space-time, right? And it's like a fabric that can be pinched in some places into black holes.
Mm-hmm.
You can also imagine it not being so violently pinched, but actually like being able to vibrate, right? Think of the surface of a kettle drum or something, like a big
Okay.
drum, right?
Yeah.
If we're like little ants living on a big kettle drum, and some human is banging on the drum with a mallet, right?
Mm-hmm.
We will sense the surface of our world, the kettle drum there,
Mm-hmm.
vibrating. And if
Yeah.
we can measure the vibrations carefully, we could actually determine, for example, how powerful the mallet is striking, how big the drum is, how thick the drum head skin material is, things like that. Okay. So on the cosmic scale, a black hole is pretty significant, right? It's a pinch in
Mm-hmm.
space-time that's so successful that if you fall in it, you're not coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if there are two such objects, and if they hit each other, that would be like a mallet hitting a kettle drum head.
Yeah.
In this case, it would be a strike that whacks space-time, and a huge amount of energy can come flying outward in the form of waves. Okay. Now, some years ago, we were able to detect these waves for the first time.
Wow.
And guess who won a Nobel Prize for that? Kip Thorne,
Yeah,
Stephen
Kip.
Hawking's pal, right?
There you go.
Along with other people who were involved in the confirmation of these gravitational waves, right?
Uh-huh.
But the idea was that, well, we could tell based on our sensitive instruments using laser-based interferometric gravitational wave observatory, that about 1 billion or so years ago,
Mm-hmm.
one black hole hit another one.
Mm.
Their combined mass was dozens of times greater than our sun.
Okay.
And so when they hit, the force of the energy was so violent that an entire sun's worth of matter was converted into energy.
Oh
All
my
right.
gosh.
Just amazing, right? Remember, a nuclear explosion,
Uh-huh.
okay, like an atomic bomb or something like that, you're converting maybe a paper clip's worth of material, and you create a gigantic explosion, right? With just
Mhm.
tiny, tiny amounts of matter changing. But now, imagine the whole sun being turned into energy all at once,
Mhm.
following the E equals MC squared matter to energy conversion.
Yeah.
A huge amount of that energy got subsumed into space-time itself and created these waves that wound up rippling through the entire universe. They were so powerful that even 1 billion or more light years away, which is where we were. Remember, a light year is 6 trillion miles. So we're talking billions of trillions of miles away from us, right?
Uh-huh.
Even at that distance, the ripples were still detectable. And
Wow.
for an instant, when those ripples were passing through the earth, an inch was not an inch. It was a little bit more than an inch, then a little bit less, then a little bit more, then a little bit less, as space itself was wobbling back and forth as this wave passed through us.
Oh my gosh. And it like passed through all of our
It
bodies
passed through all
and
of our bodies, and we did not notice it one bit,
not one bit.
because your 12 inches and my 12 inches became 11.99999 inches, then
Mhm.
12.00001 inch, and it just wobbled, and we never noticed it. But
Yeah.
these sensitive detectors did notice it, and so we were able to confirm indeed that Albert Einstein's idea of the ripples in the fabric of space-time and the ideas of black holes and the kinds of things you can do to space-time when you whack it hard enough with a cosmic mallet. That was all
Man, that's
confirmed.
incredible.
It was
Yeah.
amazing.
I
Really
wonder if in mass people were a bit sleepier that day, like some form of jet lag, right? Due
amazing.
to the space-time
That's a
changes.
great question. I think that'd be cool. We've
Yeah.
we've since that first detection found a couple dozen more such detections. They happen maybe once every couple of months, as far as we can tell, out in the universe. So that's actually way more than we thought might be true. So we have a lot to think about. These black holes, they are pretty amazing and they're pretty extreme, but apparently they're common enough that collisions happen often enough that we can detect them. I mean, we can actually think about studying the universe the way that those ants would study that kettle drum, just by seeing all these black hole collisions. It is amazing.
That's so crazy. One of life's mysteries is that birthdays always find me unprepared, catch me unprepared. I don't go on Facebook as much, so I don't notice them as much. But I want to express my love and appreciation for friends and family. That wasn't part of the copy, I'm just saying it. Year after year, month after month. Even when I see it coming, I'm not ready. Am I a jerk? Yes and no. Why do things have to be so black and white for you? But I've got great news, friends. Introducing monthly card subscriptions from the Cardist Studio. Join the service that delivers the card and the stamp that you'll need to your door. No more errands. Who wants more errands? I don't know why, but I'm starting to think of errands as a kid's name. Errands, go back to bed. Okay, but here's how it works. You choose your categories, from birthdays and celebrations to love and encouragement, or select their full collections and have those thank you notes and just because cards at the ready. Those ones are always so nice. Like when you get a card for doing something and it's just like a small little heads up or token of appreciation, it genuinely makes you feel really good. And best of all, you would never get caught cardless again. Let me repeat, you'll never get caught cardless again. Try to say that a bunch of times in a row. You'll never get caught cardless again. Monthly card subscriptions from as little as $8 per month for the card and the stamp. Delivered to you. TheCardistStudio.com shop subscriptions. And you can use the promo code AnxietyPod for 15% off your originating order. Two more questions I want to ask you about Hawking radiation, but also, so we don't know what happens when you fall past the event horizon here.
Right.
But I have heard a lot about like spaghettification, that you would be torn to shreds.
Yes.
Do we know that for sure?
For small black holes, for black holes that are, say, the size of our Earth or smaller, spaghettification will absolutely happen. Okay. Now, keep in mind that for a black hole to be about the size of our Earth, it would have to be maybe several thousand times the mass of the sun. Okay. So it's pretty massive, but it's not that big.
Right.
And what you think about is the following. If I, as a human being, am moving close to this black hole, the difference in the gravitational acceleration of my nose is actually larger than the gravitational acceleration of the back of my head.
Wow.
We actually get to a point where the gravitational field is so warped and distorted that my nose will start being pulled at a stronger rate than the back of my head.
Wow.
As I fall closer and closer to that Schwarzschild radius and that event horizon, the point of no return, my nose will become even greater elongated. At some point, I'm going to be Pinocchio, right? My sinews cannot resist this pull nearly as strongly as it gives it. So eventually my whole body, not just my nose, but my chest, my toes, they'll all be stretched outward toward the black hole's event horizon, whereas the back of my body is not stretched as much. That's a tidal effect, much like the moon, what it does to our oceans here on Earth. But this effect is so extreme that eventually I will be torn apart like taffy. And I will become streams of subatomic particles as I fall into the black hole. So I won't really notice. I won't be able to go in and wonder what it looks like in my spacesuit because I am ripped up That's spaghettification.
Yeah. But it's surprising that that would happen on a smaller one and not necessarily a larger one, right? You would think
Precisely.
larger equals more gravity equals more spaghetti.
Right. But that's one of the counterintuitive points of black holes. Just as
Mm.
we talked about earlier, right? When something is supermassive, right? If it's many millions or if it's billions of times, then the density in the center is actually quite reasonable, right?
Mm.
And if it's the density of water, when we fall into a swimming pool, we don't get torn apart, right?
No.
So the story will be the same if we try to fall into a supermassive black hole, right?
Mm.
But you still get a different kind of distortional phenomenon.
Okay.
And that's the distortion of time. You see, remember space and time are knit together, right?
Yeah.
So if you are falling down into a black hole, not only are you stretched as a human body in space,
Hmm.
but your experience of time is stretched as well. So you see, if I'm falling into a small black hole,
Yeah.
right, my body gets ripped apart
Uh-huh.
before I can really appreciate this space-time effect. All
Okay.
right. But if I'm at the edge of a supermassive black hole, I will be able to get in closer and closer and closer. And what will happen is the light, the energy coming from my body becomes redder and redder. It's shifted in wavelength because of the gravitational effects. All right. And then it gets more and more stretched out. I would not really notice that. I would still think that, I'm still the same. But if you were, say, watching me from a safe distance,
Uh-huh.
then you would watch my bright blue spacecraft start looking orange, start looking red, and then fade away from view as the light is stretched so far that it no longer is visible to human eyes.
Oh,
And
wow.
then meanwhile, if I were sending radio signal out or something like that, if I were singing some fun song, la 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 la, it would sound like la 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 everyone. And so this the whole time and so forth would change. So you would wind up kind of disappearing into the black hole, but not really, because the black hole's event horizon, the Schwarzschild radius, actually grows as it absorbs you, and then you turn into part of the black hole and you're gone. People from the outside can't see you. People from the inside, well, we don't know if there are people on the inside, and you just
Let's get
basically
them out. Yeah. If they're on
that's
the
right.
inside, you got to get them out. Yeah.
And that's basically what happens. So,
Wow.
so you still get some really cool effects, right? Indeed, theoretically speaking, if you still had some awareness of what was going on as you were falling closer and closer, what you would notice is all the other people in front of you that fell in before you, but
Mhm.
they're being stretched, right, in their time experience. So compared to you, they're stretched more. So you're going in and you'll be able to literally see the entire history of the universe at that spot as you reached the event horizon. So everything that ever happened in that point of the universe, you would be able to see it as you reach the event horizon. And then
Holy.
if you looked back behind you, then everything that will ever happen, you will watch it coming towards you in slow motion. At the
Oh,
moment you reach the event horizon, the moment you reach the Schwarzschild radius, the entire history of the universe, past, present, and future, will be visible to you in that one moment. How
man.
about
That's I can't even come up with a sentence. You spaghettified my ability to speak, Charles.
that?
That is
It is fun to think
fascinating.
about, isn't it? Yeah, it's
Oh my
super fun.
God.
It's neat.
That's so fun. I did have another question about, well, yeah, let's just jump right into it. So,
Okay.
and yet Hawking radiation
Yes.
talks about how this twist in space-time will eventually disappear. I mean, that
Right.
feels, what this amazing thing that can be done can be undone is surprising.
Yeah, yeah. What basically happened was that Hawking took the Albert Einstein model one step further for black holes. You
Okay.
see, Einstein basically thought that the universe is this fabric of space-time, right? Mm-hmm. And he's correct. However, Hawking recognized that objects in the universe are made up of subatomic particles. Mm-hmm. And therefore, not only do they have space-time properties, they also have matter-energy properties. Mm-hmm. Therefore, quantum mechanics plays a role in their overall history. Mm-hmm. So with Einstein, when you don't take quantum mechanics into account, those black holes, once they get pinched, they stay pinched forever.
Right.
But quantum mechanics has this uncertainty involved, right? Mm-hmm. And you've heard of the uncertainty principle and Schrodinger's cat and, these kinds of, is it really there or not kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Well, what Hawking calculated was that because of that uncertainty, the Schwarzschild radius is not an absolute limit. Mm-hmm. The event horizon kind of shimmers at a very, very, very low temperature. Okay. So it's not zero. It's not just stopped, but as the equivalent of temperatures of trillionths of trillionths of trillionths of a degree. Mm-hmm. All right. Above absolute zero. Very, very, very small. And what happens is that any object that has any temperature at all will give off energy. It will radiate. Mm-hmm. So when a black hole, even though it has this actual, like the effective temperature of almost absolute zero, it's not quite absolute. So it will radiate. And so what will happen is as this radiation comes off its surface, it's losing energy, right? Mm. And in a black hole, the way you get energy is not by burning things, it's not through nuclear fusion. It's just converting matter into energy. Okay. Right? E equals mc squared. That's all I have to do. So the matter in the black hole will slowly turn into energy. It evaporates. Eventually, all of the matter in the black hole will evaporate into the environment. That's what Hawking predicted. The thing is, the temperature is so low that we have yet to detect it experimentally. But mathematically, it makes sense. And it's consistent with everything that we've done so far in our studies of black holes. So most astronomers and physicists are pretty convinced that Hawking radiation will eventually lead to the demise of every black hole that's ever existed.
Wow.
Yeah. The good news is, or the bad news, depending on whether you want them to evaporate fast or slowly, the temperature is so low, right, effectively speaking, that it will take far, far longer than the age of the universe, as it currently has happened, to evaporate. So even a black hole that were, say, the size of our Earth, not even one of those supermassive black holes, it would take at least, and I'm not exaggerating with the number of billions I'm about to say here, it would take at least a billion years for such a black hole to go away. Right?
So they're hanging around. It's just like plastic in the ocean. They're going to hang around a lot longer than you
don't
expect.
Don't bring that up to me. That's what's giving me anxiety. I got to tell you, all that plastic in the ocean. But I will basically still be very much looking forward to having the confirmation that Hawking radiation exists. We may never be able to get it in our lifetimes because it's such a faint thing, right? But our universe has only been around for 13 and some change billion years. So to get to a billion years, I'm not going to change my retirement plans.
Yeah. Well, Charles, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. It's been a lot of fun to speculate and learn. I mean, my goodness, I'm wondering if you want to mention any social media or anything from the museum that you want people to look at or anything like that.
Well, the museum and the City University of New York are, of course, all on your typical social media channels. I have just started dropping a second season of my podcast. It's called The Luniverse with Dr. Charles Liu, and you can find it wherever you get your podcasts. It is kind of a gentle thing. It's once every couple of weeks, but it's also the videos available on YouTube, and then all the audio is wherever you get your audio podcasts. They're all available. But it's my way of trying to communicate to people about the coolness of the universe through the people who think about it. I
That's
don't
awesome.
go for the big name people, the famous ones.
Uh-huh.
I rather talk about younger, more energetic researchers, scientists, communicators, people
Hmm.
who are doing things right now, the cutting edge stuff. So I'm talking with younger scientists, people who are just sort of getting into the prime of their careers and training to become, the next generation of discoverers. And so we talk, and not just about science, we talk about life, because what we are, right, is a bunch of humans trying to study the universe. We are engaged in a grand journey, which happens to be a lot of fun. If we're lucky enough to do this for a living, we are really having a blast. And
That's
so
awesome.
I just want to share with people, say, hey, come talk to these young folks. Come talk to these pioneers, folks on the cutting edge, doing all the things that we old farts, are like going, wow, that's creative. That's awesome. And
Yeah,
so I really like doing that. It's a lot of fun.
that's wonderful. And the Lunarverse is just chef's kiss, right?
Well,
Beautiful.
I can take no credit for it. My family members came up with it, and I was like, that sounds a little self-serving, doesn't it? Uh, but the production team, right, and I could not be more happy and proud of the people who make the universe possible. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm just a guy who sits in front of a camera, talking into a microphone. But they sort of said this is the obvious name for
Yeah.
this podcast, for this entire channel. So the social media is at the Luniverse, THELIU, Niverse.
Nice. I'm following that immediately. Yeah.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you. We just have a lot of fun with it, and it's just
That's
the goal
awesome.
is to make everyone feel happy about science and scientists, and just enjoy the process of discovery. It's just a lot of fun.
I love that. And it goes back to, what you were saying at the beginning of the interview of just trying to share the excitement and the fun of science with
Yeah.
people who aren't in it every day, right? And
Yes.
because it's fun and everybody can
That's right.
participate.
That's right. That's exactly what it is. And then my latest book is the same idea. It's called The Cosmos Explained, and it's got both words and pictures. It has
Hey, that's great.
photographs and diagrams and biographies, and it's designed to describe the history of the universe from the beginning to the present and beyond, but telling it as a story, right? The
Mm,
same way that we think about the story of a person or the story of a place or the story of a thing. This is the story of the cosmos. It is pretty amazing, but
love
it
that.
should be fun, right?
Yeah.
It should be, everyone should be able to enjoy it, whether you want to look at it through the mathematical equations, or whether you want to look at it through words, or whether you want to look at it through pictures. That's what the Cosmos Explained was all about.
I love it. Well, thanks again, Charles, and always a pleasure having you on.
You're very welcome. It's a real pleasure to be back on. We'll do
Yeah.
this again sometime, okay?
Sounds good. So yeah, there we have it. Man, Charles is the best. So yeah, thank you so much to Charles. A lot of amazing information there, and it's just so fun to learn about something so seemingly science fictiony, right? Like we're down here on Earth with problems like I'm not sleeping well. Are those beetles that are attacking my hydrangea bushes gonna destroy them, right? And then out in space is this giant swarming space-time bubble. That's probably incorrect. In fact, that's not an accurate description of what a black hole is. Before we get to the weird thing causing me anxiety this week, just want to remind you of the Buy Me a Coffee link. It's just a way to make a donation to the show. That link is in the description. Also, the Pure Spectrum CBD partnership, who offer the promo code AnxietyPod for 15% off your orders. Use it as many times as you want. Go for it. Reach out if I've tried basically everything they have. So reach out if you have questions, and I'll give you my honest opinion. If you want to sign up for home delivery of groceries, you can do that through Instacart. The link is in the description. And then there's the Carta Studio, who also offer the promo code AnxietyPod for 15% off your initial order. So yeah, supporting them helps support the show. So thank you to them. And thank you to everyone that has supported them. Okay, the weird thing causing me anxiety this week. starting a new therapist. I had another one a few weeks ago that I started with. It wasn't a fit, right? It's nobody's fault. But then, yeah, it's funny. It's like I just get anxious thinking like, oh, is this person going to judge me? It's completely inaccurate. It's not a real thing that could ever happen. It's like these are licensed professionals, and yet I'm still like, oh God, is this person just going to be like, ugh, what's wrong with Pat? You know what? I'm quitting therapy because these are actual thoughts that like I was gonna bring something so like pathetic or something that they would be like, all right, I'm out. Enough is enough. I'm gonna go work for the city. I can't do this. So yeah, that's what it's like to be in my mind. But you probably already knew that if you've been listening to this show. So yeah, fingers crossed it'll go well. Actually, I think I'll have, well, no. I was going to say I'll have had the appointment by the time this is out, but that's not true. Maybe. It depends on when you're listening to it. Oh, that's just a good, long, drawn-out description. Well, as always, thank you so much for listening. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you on Thursday.